Please note that the views expressed on this program are those of the individuals who speak them, and not necessarily those of Portsmouth Community Radio, its Board of Trustees, members, volunteers, or underwriters. Good evening and welcome to Spirit Radio. I am your host, Willie Hassell. Along with my co-host, Lynn Nickerson, we will take you on a journey into the unknown, where the paranormal becomes the normal. A journey to a world cloaked in darkness, where reality becomes a thin veil. So sit back, relax, and join us as we venture into the shadows, the darkness, the unknown, and back. And good evening, and welcome once again to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. I am your host, Willie Hassell, your gatekeeper to the dark side, your guide to the realm of the unknown, the unseen, the unthinkable. And she is the always lovely, she is the mystical, she is the mysterious, and she is Lynn Nickerson.
Good evening, Willie. I'm so happy to be here. How are you?
Oh, I'm happy to be here too. And I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm doing all
good.
right. You know.
Anything new?
Anything new?
Any new haunted spots or anything?
I haven't come across any myself. I was kind of hoping maybe you did, but I know for sure somebody who probably has.
Well, we've got some perspective things coming about. Yes, but we have a wonderful guest in studio who can enlighten us in these matters.
That's right. That's right. And he has been here with us. I think this is his
fourth or fifth?
Third, fourth. I don't know. He was on
fifth.
with Paul and Ben.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least fifth. Yeah.
3 times by himself.
I think this is your third time by yourself.
The fourth time,
on
fifth
with
time?
Paul and Ben, on with Paul, Ben, and Bill. And, and that's because he's such a great guest, and he's a good friend of ours, and we really appreciate
Fantastic.
We really appreciate him coming in, especially on this rainy night. He made a long drive to get here, too. Did you know that?
How long? How long a drive was it?
It took me over 2 hours, I think.
Really?
What, tonight? Were you coming from home?
Just slightly, yeah. Yeah.
Because the roads?
Yeah, maybe the roads and the weather and stuff like that. But normally it's a little under 2 hours, but a little bit longer this time.
I didn't realize you lived that far away.
Yeah, it's not too bad, but it's well worth it.
So glad you could make it.
All right. Well, we should probably
Should I say his name?
Yeah, we should probably tell people who we're talking to. Tonight's guest is, once again, Shane Sirois, and Shane has been doing paranormal investigations for over 25 years, and he has helped thousands of people around the country and around the world. Is that right, Shane?
You're correct.
And he has a very rare 100% success rate, and a rather a different approach to paranormal investigating, and we are very lucky and happy to have him join us again.
Ditto.
Good evening, Shane, and welcome to Spirit Radio.
Thank you for having me. I'm just as lucky to know you guys, so appreciate
Glad to have
it.
you back. What fun. Well, I think Shane and I are both sort of orally compromised tonight, but we'll do the best we can.
Does that mean I'm the only one healthy here?
You're the only one who's healthy and who can talk normal.
But it gives me an extra deep voice, with this head cold, so.
That resonates.
But the thing is, I could never talk normal, so why is tonight any different?
Why is tonight any different? Shane, for our listening audience, could you give a really brief summary of how you got into this, starting with being sick as a child?
Yeah, it was living in a home at a very young age that had activity, and then also other experiences in Texas. A couple years after that, living in a haunted house, and then living in another house in Texas, and having weird dreams of alien stuff. But my main focus has always been with ghosts and and stuff like that. So when I had a recurring dream from the time I was about 5 on, and it was always the same dream every night from 5 years old on, and I swear I had it every night. And it was we're camping out as a family, and across this big raging river on the other side, there was these Native Americans. There were other, French people. There were like all kinds of different origins, but all my ancestors or friends and family that were celebrating that I was there, and they wanted me to come over and join them and
Cross the river and join them.
cross the river and join them. The river was going so fast, but I knew if I tried to cross and the river would take me away, and so I never did. But so then when I was about 10, I got really sick, and I had, what could have been a visitation, could have been a hallucination, because I wasn't really able to eat or drink for like a month, and
you were hospitalized.
yeah, I ended up being hospitalized. But the night that I got hospitalized, I had a visitation, and this gentleman who actually was in my dream from the time I was 5 on, now I'm 10 and a half or so, said, we try to reach you through dreams, but we weren't able to do so. So now this has to happen. But
Because you were just plain numb.
yeah, like we have to bring you here in order for you to do what you're going to do for the rest of your life, and that's what I've been doing, and I do it very scientifically. So it's talking about it like that seems like it's all spiritual and on that end, but I'm the one that says, even the spiritual can be explained through a scientific equation, and so I'm very scientific with the way I approach things. So,
and the individual in that dream happened to be an uncle, a deceased uncle or something, a deceased relative anyway, right?
yeah, possibly, yeah.
That you didn't recognize until later on?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. So,
that's pretty cool to find that out.
So that's been my, the whole thing I wanted to do in life was just help people in some, form. But it seems like this is the way it comes more natural, because this is the way people are drawn to me in a more spiritual way. And I help people more than just, oh, my house is haunted, but I help people spiritually and just getting them on a right path in their life beyond just haunted houses. So, and sometimes, most of the time, that's how we're going to help the haunt.
Because where they are in their lives, it's kind of destroyed their self-esteem and, well, their will to live, and psychologically they are compromised. So you help them through that, and that seems to help them out of this rut that they're in.
Right. So, and people say the misconception is the house is haunted. And I'm telling you right now that the ones that are haunted by some negative entity, it's never the house that's haunted. It's the human being. It's a person that's haunted. So I have to get back. We have to go back into their past and figure out where they come in contact, where this interaction was allowed, and what connected them. So, we have to go back, and I have to ask them, like, how long have you lived here? What have you done? Like, when did this start taking place? What was going wrong in your life? And so we start making connections, and I have to counsel them through issues. Like, and sometimes it's all kinds of different things, all kinds of issues, life issues that I have to, whether it's alcoholism. There was a prostitute who was feeling guilty. She was trying to get her child back, and she felt that was the only way to do it, and she was living with that guilt. She hated herself for it, but she ended up being a brilliant writer. And I said, what do you feel good about in your life? What do you have passion for? And she says, writing. And she showed me something that she wrote, and it was absolutely astounding. I said, do me a favor, just go after this as hard as you can. And she ended up getting a job at the Boston Globe.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, and that was like a week later. So this is how, it just takes somebody just believing in somebody that has nobody that believes in them, but we have to identify what's going on, and counsel them through that problem, and then we break that connection with the parasite, because these parasites are looking for somebody that's vulnerable, or going through something. So,
getting back, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you really, I know you don't have a degree in it or anything in psychology, but you really have to use psychology, and you have somewhat of a background in
grassroots
psychology, right?
Yeah, I have a real strong background. I think I've done more studying with psychology than a graduate, and I mean it's everything as far as what we do. I mean it means a lot, and I've always been a good study of people. I have a good mechanical aptitude, and I apply that to mechanical things as well as human behavior. And you got to look for trends and stuff like that in human behavior. And I started picking up on these things. So it's everything. everyone that does this work, they focus on one thing or the other.
Yeah, they miss all the elements. Yeah, some of the elements are missing.
They're missing a lot. And so, we have a high electromagnetic field. Oh, well, it's because of a presence of a ghost. And so there was a case I wanted to talk about tonight that'll disprove that in a lot of cases, and just kind of make people aware, because there's so many amateurs out there and so many novices who still focus on the same things. And there's a lot of people that call themselves experts that still don't know some things that they need to know.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people in this world on the level, and that's okay. So it doesn't mean that they're not trying and trying to help people. And I just think that we need to
probably broaden their scope of learning, and it's more comprehensive than what they think.
Very much so. And you can't put yourself out there and say, I can help you, when you can't cover every different direction that it may be, because it's not a ghost. They're going to say, oh, it's a ghost or it's not a ghost. But there's all kinds of other things that could be creating situations in their home that are bad for their health, mental health, physical health, and everything else that's not a ghost. But they're allowing
it to happen unwittingly.
Well, it's affecting them, so it's real to them. But if you just go in there and say, well, we found no evidence of a ghost, but yet they still have problems, we can cure things. We can even cure death, and we'll talk about that more when we talk about some of the, this case or two that I wanted to talk about.
Shane, let me ask you just really quickly, the woman who went to work for the Boston Globe, what was she experiencing psychically or ghost-wise?
She was being attacked.
Was she really?
Yeah, her door was broken out of. The Arlington, Massachusetts Police Department called me from her location and said, she gave them my number, but they said, you have to get down here because we have no explanation. She had something going on in her back area of her apartment, and all of a sudden there was like an explosion. What would sound like a big giant bang, like almost an explosion, and something had splintered her door, like a real, metal door with real good framing, just shattered it.
From the inside?
From the inside. It wasn't breaking it in, it was breaking out. Now, but there was all kinds of other things. I had things on video camera that I created, that I recorded that, that wasn't easily debunked, but she was being attacked a lot, and what it came down to was I could just sense that, when I interviewed her, that she was going through a lot of things, and there was something that she wasn't comfortable talking about. Me being very scientific but also sensitive, I pick up on human emotions very well, and I could tell that she was full of guilt, and there was something that she just needed to get out. And
something was feeding off of her guilt then to manifest like that?
Yeah, she was in a state where she was very vulnerable, and she was self-loathing and stuff like that. So and so she became a victim. And so when I said, listen, you're not comfortable talking to me right now, but I think there's something that
you're holding back on.
You're holding back, and I feel it's a lot of guilt and a lot of things that you're not comfortable. Well, I went home, I got an email, and she spilled it on me, and
really,
yeah, and said you were absolutely right. And so that then we can put a plan in place. But this is how it everything that I do when it comes to parasitic entities, people that are being attacked, that's what we get down to. We get to, okay, you lived here for 6 years. It was haunted for 2 years. I've been attacked for 2 years.
What happened?
Yeah, so that's not coincidental. There's a reason for that. There's other natural elements. Don't get me wrong, but there's those things. Those natural elements allow that interaction more so. But there's something that initiates it, and it's usually a connection between one parallel to the other, and it's our frequency too. Like when we're fearful or when we're depressed, our frequency that we emit is lowered substantially, and it becomes equivalent to cancer, mold, other parasitic life forms. So we go from this heightened frequency. And a lot of people think that's just something that people talk about it, but it's real. It's measurable by science.
Yeah.
So this is real. This is not just something that people just say. I think a lot of psychics use the terminology, but they don't understand what
the
they're actually
mechanics
talking.
behind it. Yeah. How old a case is that? How old a case is that?
Oh, that one's a very long time ago.
A long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, probably close to 20 years.
Okay, so it's not real recent.
No.
Before you get into how people's state of mind affects everything, have you been to any like public buildings where there are hauntings of historic places, so that it isn't just a case of someone's emotional baggage that is contributing to the activity?
Yeah,
like maybe in the beginning, had you gone to historic places?
Yeah, I have. Now the type of work I do right now, your wording was, maybe in the beginning. So I did a lot more of that
before in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now I specialize in helping people in homes and stuff like that. But yeah, I've done like the Portsmouth Music City Hall or Music Hall. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I did that years ago, and I think it was for a Foster's Sunday Citizen news thing, and
so that's really just a case of maybe some residual energy with maybe some intelligent hauntings going on.
There was stuff going on there. We get a lot of good EVPs that were actually calling us by name and stuff like that.
Jeez.
And referring to things that we were doing. So it wasn't just random comments. They were actually referring to things that we were doing. And Mike Sullivan, who you guys know,
right?
Who is one of the world's best EVP specialists. They were referring to him. That was his kind of like his interview to work with me. He wanted to work with me, and I I'm like, why? I'm not sure about this EVP thing. There's so many sound waves out there. So let me test you out, and he blew me away with what he was getting. I mean, he had Michael is weak, Sullivan this. They were calling him by his name, and
I think he probably played a couple of those the night that they were on.
Did.
I know he had something that they called him by name. I don't know if it was from the music hall, but it very well could have been the same one.
Probably was, yeah. And so that was a good one. And I did feel on 2 occasions I felt the presence of something. And such a large space. A lot of times, with the negative ones, they kind of run from me, and I have to chase them into rooms. And I've had furniture blocking doorways that just slide and just
come on.
Oh yeah,
really?
Gather in doorways to keep me out of the room because these parasites are afraid of me. But the music hall wasn't like that. There was something there, but it wasn't running from me. I just happened upon it a couple times.
Do you felt that it was somewhat negative?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, it was just a presence. Probably the strongest presence was, now Grant, this was a long time ago. It was walking upstairs into like a balcony area.
Mm-hmm.
Up the by the projection booth?
Yeah, up that way. And on one of the staircases on 2 occasions, coming up, because we walked around quite a bit, but walking through, I think there's like a staircase here and a staircase here.
Yeah, on either side.
Yep.
Yeah.
In between the two, I encountered something, and then walking up on the left side at one point, I encountered something. But most of the time, we go to a lot of these places, and I think people deem a lot of these restaurants and these cemeteries haunted because a lot of people have the fascination with the paranormal, and they need somewhere to go, but they don't have the luck that we have, and to be invited into homes and and stuff like that. So they have to go to the cemeteries and these other places, but most of them are not active. They're just not. So.
Okay. Well, what about this? You were going to talk to us about the Bridgeport, Connecticut haunting that you've been dealing with.
Yeah, that was interesting because Bill Holland, he got contacted because he did a book signing down that way, and Bill Hall, the author of the World's Most Haunted House and the Haunted House Diaries, and So he was doing a book signing down that way, and this one lady that read the book, she contacted him and said, Mr. Hall, I have this house I want you to look at. So he reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to go here with me? And so we went down and I checked it out. We ended up going back again, and my assessment both times were the same. And now there was another Connecticut group that I won't name, but this large group that investigated. I guess they were given a 2-week span where they could come and go, and they really just set up shop, I guess.
And this was a private residence, right?
Yes, private residence. And the man, her husband, had passed away, and so the house was in her name. So I mean, in his name. I'm sorry. So it's in some kind of like limbo with the court right now. But ultimately, she owns the house, but they're just waiting on whatever legalities and stuff like that. So they were able to be granted access for 2 weeks. So they went in there and for 2 weeks, and it was a rather large group, larger than what's needed, I think. But they started arguing. The longer they were in this house, everyone started arguing. There was 2 couples, I think, that were involved in the group, 2 married couples who ended up ultimately getting divorced. Is what
the team, the investigative team.
Yes,
wow.
What I'm being told. Got divorced. The group is now disbanded. The website I checked tonight is gone.
Down. Wow.
So now they attributed this to this house. But it's sometimes people, especially amateurs and even a lot of novice, they give too much credit to the paranormal. Now these things can hurt you. They can affect you. And stuff like that. But if you actually know about the mechanics, then you can disallow all that from happening, and you actually understand that you're in control, and it's not the other way around. And what they did was they gave this thing too much power, and they became victims themselves. So they went in there to give answers or to provide help to their client, but in a sense, they became more affected than the client herself. And now, so when I went in there, immediately, I told you I'm sensitive, but I'm also very scientific. So I could feel kind of like I'm an empath too, So I could feel the anger that used to reside in this house. I could feel it. I could feel it wasn't my anger. It wasn't making me angry, but I could feel that this house was just not a happy place. But there was no presence in this house. I walked room to room. I walked into closets. These things do tend, if there was a parasite in there, they do tend to hide from me. I've chased these things around houses and apartments a lot of times, and I can finally corner them. And when I do corner them, they'll try to break away, and it causes doors to slam, windows, debris to move. But there was nothing in there. And if there was, I would have felt it. There was no parasite when I went in there both times. What I did feel was the past, but I also felt I'm sensitive to EMF. This house was loaded with EMF, but the power was turned off. So why is this so, right? So here's the thing. So I think these groups went in there, and they might have had EMF detectors, and they might have sent, got readings that there was EMF in the house. And all of a sudden they say, oh, ghost, because the most active places in the house was the kitchen, and right below the kitchen in the basement, there was this corner of the basement where everyone felt like it was just a horrible place. It was a dark, mean thing down there. Well, that's also where the grounding rod was for the house. So what I did immediately when I got the readings in the kitchen, I went downstairs. I got readings in that part of the basement. There was an access panel in the wall, and I opened the access panel, and I put my EMF detector against near the copper piping where the grounding cable from the grounding rod that goes into your property. So if your house gets hit by lightning, it grounds it. Where that cable was coming through, pegged my EMF detector, pegged it.
Really?
Power's off at the house. It's coming in through the grounding rod. So there's something that's called reverse looping that can come in from a grounding rod from a transformer that's on the street by your house. It can also come in from another home. So these are things that you can't control, but can be fixed. I mean, to identify. Now, I'm not about to suggest how we're going to fix this for her, because she has no hopes. She's not going to move back into this house. She just wanted confirmation that her house is haunted, and it's not. So, what I told her was what was going on in the house for years. Her husband lived in this house for his first marriage. Then he divorced. He got married to her. Same stuff that was going on. He was violent. He became abusive to both of them. Very angry, hostile. Other people would get that way sporadically. When he left the house, he was fine. He would get...
Really?
He'd be fine.
He'd just act up at home.
He'd go back at home, and he would act up again. And this is a direct result of the EMF level in the house. It was out, like, off the charts. It was over 200 milligauss. I mean, it pegged my meter.
How can that be when the power's off?
Reversed looping through the ground rod in the ground. Now, there's something that's called bimetal. So, and this is what I'm talking about. In order to do this work properly, people need to know so much more than just what's a ghost and what's not a ghost. You have to be able to diagnose a lot of things, sleep disorders, everything, in order to do this work properly. If you say you can help people, you have to know how to do so many things. So, now, there's something that's called bimetal. So, if your copper, like say your copper grounding rod that protects your house in case it gets hit by lightning, it grounds out, is sitting in minerals, iron, and all this other stuff. It corrodes together and it creates an electromagnetic field. But this was so substantial. I knew it was something more than bimetal. If you convert an old house system like plumbing to new plumbing, you have to use what's called, when it goes to like old, like iron to copper, you have to use what's called a dielectric union. But this house wasn't that old, so I knew we were looking at something else. So I really believe where it's coming in through the ground rod, what's called reverse looping, through either a transformer, through the city lines, or from a close by property where it's actually something's grounding out into the ground and feeding back into their home through their ground rod.
And whereabouts in the home is it feeding to?
It's feeding to the ground rod, which is located to the most active part of the house, which is their...
through the kitchen.
The kitchen's the most active, and then below it, they call the dark evil corner, which is below the kitchen. That's where no one likes to be because they feel like something's going to get them.
Okay.
There's nothing there. What high electromagnetic field does is it makes you feel like it stimulates paranoia. That's a fact. It also makes you see shadowy movements in your peripheral, as well as if you're prolonged exposure to EMF, you'll start seeing grayish, greenish hues in your direct vision.
Oh, wow.
Looking like figures.
Yeah.
Headaches.
I know that exposure to high EMF just for a short period can really make you feel strange.
Absolutely.
And, I've never been exposed to it for a long time, but on an investigation I had done one time, someone left an EMF pump in one of the rooms.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was in there for probably 20 minutes, and I had to get out.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it.
Yep, it does that. And so what's interesting about this house, so I'm telling her that, she goes, yeah, but, and I'm like, I know. I said, I know you want to believe it was something else, but I'm telling you, there's nothing in your house. I'm not saying there was never a parasitic entity, because with these emotions, it could have drawn something in. But parasites need something to feed off of. And if the house is dormant and no one's living in there for a long time, the parasite ain't going to stick around. They're not there for the house. They're there for you. So, and I knew this was the case. So I said, here's another thing EMF can do. High EMF will actually cause cancer. And she goes, that's what my husband died of. He died of a rare form of cancer that the doctors never understood.
What was it? Do you know?
She didn't tell me. She just said it was a really rare form. And I know her house was just off the mark. And no power being fed to the house. This is coming in naturally through her ground rod. And I'm telling you, it pegged my EMF detector. And anything on my EMF detector, 25 milligauss, exposure, like, extended exposure could expose you to a cancer, risk.
Really? And that was 200.
It was over 200.
Over 200.
It pegged at 200, so it could have been higher. Now, what happens is, it not only lowers your immune system, but it mutates cells. And there you go. That's what cancer is.
That's right.
So
why do you suppose it was affecting him and not everybody else, or at least him so violently and not everybody else violently?
He was home more. It was once he
really.
Yeah, once she continued to work or something like that. It was once he because he was affected by it when he was home. He was getting violent and stuff like that and abusive. But once he retired, that's when he got really sick. And I mean, there's still wheelchairs in the house and stuff like that. He got really, really sick because he was always home.
I wonder if he spent most of his time in the kitchen.
Possibly.
That's a thought.
He had his little den that was just off of the kitchen too. But this is a former. There's still in the house. There was a big, large photo. I mean, it was almost like 5 foot tall of him. He was a amateur boxing champion or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. So he was a healthy man at one point, but this house is what I call a sick home, and so it gives you.
You know what, Shane? We are at the bottom of the hour.
You got it.
So we're going to break here. I can't wait to hear how this winds up. We're talking to Shane Sirois from TrueGhost.com, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes after this short break. So don't go anywhere, please. Supernatural Magazine, the UK's newest paranormal magazine, provides support to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience. It is the magazine's goal to bring every aspect of supernatural news and research from around the world under one roof to create a universal platform for all those interested in the supernatural. More information is available at supernaturalmagazine.com. You are listening to Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience on WSCA 106.1 FM, and we'll be right back after this short break.
And now, Lynn, do you have some upcoming guests?
I do. Our list starts with April 9th. Dean Merchant, who's a local UFO historical researcher, along with his wife Pam, are the originators and organizers of Exeter's UFO Festival. He's currently researching the history of UFOs in Exeter, as well as other New England areas, as far back as the 17th century. So both Dean and Pam will be in the studio to talk to us about that. April 16th. Regarding UFO crashes in Roswell, there was also a few others, although they weren't as widely publicized. And one of these known crashes took place in Aztec, New Mexico in March 1948, just after the Roswell crash in July of 1947. So Scott and Suzanne Ramsey, who are authors of the Aztec UFO incident, will be our guests to discuss their extensive research on this matter. April. How about April 23rd? The Empath Quest is the latest release of the Reverends Betty Comerford and Steve Wilson, and this will be their third appearance on Spirit Radio, and they lend guidance to those who find themselves overwhelmed by the emotions of others. April 30th, the quintessential lighthouse historian, Jeremy D'Entremont, will join us once again to wrap up his tales and histories of his West Coast Lighthouse tour, which he took a few months ago. And then May 7th, Joni Mayhand is a returning guest, and she wrote the book on the Victorian Mansion in Gardner, Mass. What was that, Bones in the Basement?
Bones in the Basement.
Bones in the Basement. Right. And she's going to return to talk to us about her new release, which is titled The Devil's Toy Box. Sounds very intriguing.
Very intriguing.
That completes our upcoming guest list.
All right. Well, okay. And so now we will go back to our guest in studio. Shane Sirois has joined us once again, and he's updating us on some of his past investigations.
Yes. Welcome back, Shane.
Welcome back, Shane.
So we were talking about these high EMF readings that affected this gentleman in this house, and he died of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you got all that info, how how did you handle this? What did you tell these people?
Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, she is not going to move back in the house. She had a son, her stepson, her husband, her late husband's son, who, when he was moving his final items out, kind of destroyed the basement with a sledgehammer.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, because he was angry at the house and blamed the house and stuff like that. And like I said, it is a sick home, but that's not the problem. Was not an entity in the home. The problem was these extremely high EMF levels, and it's not a secret. This causes people to become volatile, enraged. It can cause psychosexual disorders. It can cause all kinds of things, but just anger, and that's what pretty much the guy of the house, who was there the most, was suffering from, and then ultimately the cancer.
Well, did his son live there as well?
Yeah, he lived in the basement.
He lived in the basement?
Yeah.
And how long did he live there?
I'm not sure.
Because I'm wondering if that affected part of his outrage.
Yeah. But they have no hopes to move back in there. They just have it right now. The lady that, the widow, this thing's in kind of like limbo with the courts right now, but ultimately her lawyer said, it's your house, don't worry about it, we just waiting for some legalities or whatever, but she's just going to get rid of it.
Well, have you made any suggestions to her as to how to diffuse this high EMF? Is there anything that can be done?
Yes, yeah, we can divert it. If we can't get to the source, if we're not able to get to the source of what's doing it, we can identify the source. But if we're not able to do something ourselves, and we can't get that responsible party to do something about it, then
it's like a town utility.
It could be town utility, or it could be a neighbor, or then we can divert it. There is a way we can divert it, but like I said, she's not prepared to pay for it because she's not going to keep the house. So it's just, to me, it's like, I'm not going to just waste my breath with it.
Yeah.
So she just wanted answers, and that's the answer.
But it's not haunted, and it's the house.
Right. And now, did this type of sick home, eventually put somebody in the right mind frame, to allow a parasite in? Possibly. But a parasite needs somebody to feed off of, and if the house is vacant, it's not going to be there.
Okay.
So this group that went in there, they got their footage, and they put it on YouTube, and this is our proof, and we got this, and every single thing that they posted was just debunked right away by me. These were amateurs, or even I see novices, posting this stuff as being real, but it was nothing. Ultimately, everything was just dust, in their lens.
Well, Shane, what was she reporting happening besides the man being violent? Was she experiencing paranormal activity that she interpreted as paranormal activity? What was it?
It was,
what was she experiencing?
Mostly just anger, enraged, people becoming violent, like becoming unlike themselves. Normally nice people just being angry, and people fighting all the time. That was the most of it. Only on a couple occasions I can remember that she told me where there was one time they heard whistling in the kitchen, which also can be heard, has been experienced in high EMF levels. Where
auditory phenomena.
Yeah, but this whistling sound too, like a frequency, where in these high EMF level areas where people are exposed to it for so long, they hear these frequency changes and stuff like that. So, yeah, so it could be interpreted as whistling.
Yeah.
You mean that's something they actually do hear? They're not imagining it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep. So, but as far as that, it was mostly like shadowy movements in the peripheral, which is caused by high EMF.
Yeah.
That's a scientific fact. And I'm not the one that's going to say ghosts don't exist, we don't have interaction.
There was nothing there.
I'm just here to debunk. Trust me, I've seen my share. I don't think there's anybody that's seen as much as I've seen. So I know the stuff is real, but I also have enough experience to go into this house and say there was nothing. There's nothing here now, but here's what's going on. This is what probably stimulated. If you did have something going on legitimately, which I kind of really doubt, It was all a result of EMF, because there wasn't a lot of the other natural elements that are needed to have that level of a haunt. I think it was just a byproduct or a product of this high EMF that was kind of imposed on them.
Wow.
And so, and that was it. And I mean, ultimately, it cost her husband his life.
So that was really basically the end of the investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's what you concluded.
Yep. I mean, I can tell you something, but I know you're not gonna translate it to the person that buys a house or gets it next. So what, we're
I
just
hope something can be done.
yeah.
It's a shame to have to pass that on to somebody else.
It can be done, and it could be costly too. But it's there's definitely something that can be done.
Well, how about an update on one of your other cases? This is regarding a 72-year-old lady in Connecticut, and she had been sexually assaulted, and you went and you visited her, and you kind of debunked it, and well, not debunked it, but reasoned it out that it could very well have been something mimicking what her father had done to her.
Yep.
So how has she been doing?
She's doing very good. The diagnosis and the treatment had to involve her daughter, who was very close to her. So they were both present when I went to the home and talked to them. I interviewed, and I got back to the some of the things that have happened to her in her life, and being sexually assaulted by her father at a very young age, and now in her later years that her husband passed away. Almost a couple weeks after, she starts being assaulted in the same way that her father used to assault her, which
That's strange.
her father used to, on his hands and knees, go to the foot of her bed when she was a child and grab her by her ankles and drag her down towards
Foot of
him.
the bed, yeah.
And that's what was happening to her now in her golden years. And so, just interviewing her and finding out all this other, these things that are happening. But what happened was, caring for her husband, who was not well, in a wheelchair and stuff like that, it kept a lot of that her internal dialogue occupied with just caring for somebody, and she didn't have a lot of time to dwell on these bad thoughts and stuff like that. Well, once he passed away, now she's dealing with his loss, missing him, and also reverting back to these bad memories. And this parasite, especially living around water and stuff, we find it makes it worse. It kind of acts as like an amplifier.
She was close to the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a block away.
Yeah.
But she, all of a sudden now she's starting to be attacked the same way. And her daughter witnessed it because her daughter stayed over.
And slept with her for a couple of nights.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Her daughter's like 51 or something like that, 52. And her daughter stayed in bed with her one night and put her leg over her mother's, and they're both on their back. She wrapped one of her legs over her mother, and all of a sudden she said a head rose up from the base of the sheet and was sliding up towards them, and they both freaked out. And well,
I would too.
This lady, she used to be head editor for a top magazine in the 1980s. I won't say it because I don't want to identify her, but she very with it person, and was not making this up. She witnessed it, and she said, my mother's going through something. So, but just about a month or two ago, I got an email from them saying that, and this, what was it, like 6-8 months ago?
About 6 months, yeah, at least 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Last November, so you were on the show talking about it.
Right.
So
I just got like a month or so ago, got an email saying that, your godsend, everything that you said was absolutely spot on, and you brought my mother peace, and everything's good. So, and it's not that I'm special. It's just that I happen to have information about the mechanics that other people don't have. So that's my job, is to help people with that.
So that's where it sits, that she hasn't had any recurrence of that.
No, she once in a while something tries to like kind of stimulate her a little bit, get her attention a little bit, but she knows, based on the plan that I put forward with them, here's what you need to do, here's what you don't need to do, here's how this thing will survive, and here's how you shut it off. And so she just remembers that, she puts it into place, and this thing goes away, and so she's been pretty happy.
So it was a good update email that everything's going well for her.
Yep.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So and I stand today, luckily with 100% success rate. I haven't failed anyone yet. So I mean, and
that's excellent.
And I don't say that with a big head. I say that because I have an obligation, and I'm glad that if I can get to these people that need me, that's what's important. So that's why I'm not a media person, but this is why I love to do anything I can to get my word.
You take what you do very seriously.
Very.
And you're very good at what you do, and this is
you get results.
And this is a way to help to get people to know.
Yeah.
Right.
To understand that what you see on TV is not the real world.
Not the real world at all.
That's not necessarily the way things go.
And that's how I get a lot of the big ones, because these people that are going through something in their home, they're not into the paranormal most of the time. They're just normal people doing their normal thing. They're not obsessed with the paranormal. These are the real cases, but they start going through something horrific, and the only thing they know is like, oh, this show. They'll watch a show and they reach out to these shows, and then so they bring in all these. Some of my biggest cases, they bring in three different shows. These so-called paranormal celebrity experts who aren't experts, and so they go in there, and so when all is said and done, they finally realize I have to do my homework. I can't just take these people, for what they're supposed to be, and then they do their homework and they start researching and doing Google, and then they find their way to me, and that's when I get in to help the worst ones. So I deal with the worst of the worst. You
had mentioned something about curing death. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Curing death?
You said something like you can cure anything, even death. Was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh,
what you meant.
By diagnosing these sick homes.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sorry. Yeah. So
averting it actually. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
okay. I thought maybe we had a fountain of youth or something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can go back to that case in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, where the guy actually had pancreatic cancer, and he's still alive today. And this was back in 1998.
That was the older gentleman that wound up in the nursing home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
His haunt came with his pancreatic cancer diagnosis, and once we got the haunt to go away, so did his pancreatic cancer, which doesn't happen.
Yeah, that seems to never go away. It's pretty lethal.
And that's a rare one. So, we're not going to say that's every time. But
how about any follow-up on what's going on in Connecticut with the Philly household?
The triangle.
From the Connecticut Triangle.
Yep. I talk to them all the time. Awesome people, very wonderful people. And I just talked to her again. Willie and I need to get down there, and you too, if you want to go. So all three of us.
Absolutely, we're waiting.
And hopefully my wife will come too, and we'll get down there. We got pretty much an open door invitation. They're probably listening right now, and just
hope so.
I'll tell you what. I mean, even if their house wasn't haunted, I told them this the other day. Even if your house wasn't so wonderfully haunted, I still
wonderfully haunted.
I'm so blessed to know these people, because they have had an impact on me. They're just so warm and just funny and brilliant, and the way they approach life. So
have they had anything new to report in the way of new occurrences?
Yeah, they always have stuff going on. I can't pull anything out off the top of my head right now, but it's always something.
Well, there were a couple of things that did go on that was weird, like a horse coming up to one of the investigators, a horse galloping by, I think it was right by Paul Eno.
Right.
And he felt the breeze as the horse went by.
Yep.
Couldn't see a thing, though. He could hear it and feel it, but he couldn't see it, which is just peculiar,
Yeah.
Quite a phenomenon.
First time I was there, it was a train for me, and I'm like,
a train.
What? It makes no sense. There's no train tracks.
Did you hear it, or just sense it?
I'm weird, because sometimes I'll see things in my head.
Yeah.
But I heard it. I saw it in my head. But I felt it in my heart. But I definitely did hear it, and it was real, you know.
And you weren't the only one that sensed a train in the area, right?
Donna used to see a train. She used to look out her window, and it was like, boom, 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 like, you know, passenger cars going by.
But there hadn't been one in the area.
There was never a train track there, right?
Not that I know of,
That
no.
they know of. At least maybe
No.
the track had been torn up, but had there been one?
There definitely probably wasn't, but it just this type of area, you know. Like I said, your most active areas are going to be where running water is, especially ones that bend towards a property, areas that you're going to congregate, whether it's a home or something else. Water's going to flow towards that and bend away. At that point, in that direction, seems to be the most active spots, and you know, we can waste 3 more hours talking about that, so I won't get too involved.
But we only have 2 minutes.
Exactly. She has 3 rivers pointing towards our house and pulling away, so that's why this house is so active.
Wow. And how about, is it on granite, near granite?
No, not that we know, but no, it's mostly the water flow, and you know. That's what's fueling this area, and we're not the only ones. Like we said, the military are involved investigating this area, and there's been huge UFO sightings too. So it seems like there's a lot of.
Probably is a portal nearby.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Donna, if you are listening, we look forward to meeting you.
Ditto.
Coming soon.
Yeah, we only got like maybe a minute.
So, what do you want to cram into a minute?
All right. Well, I can't remember everywhere I'm speaking at, but I got the Sausage Symposium coming up in May, right?
May, what is that? May
14th, I
14th
think.
or 4th?
Yeah.
It was on a Friday.
Yeah.
Friday and a Saturday, actually.
May 14th. There's another one in Connecticut, and I can't remember. It's like a retired horse race fundraiser thingy, but the Sausage Symposium, and
we'll be speaking there too.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, and then, but other than that, just truehost.com, TRUEGHOST.com, and
You're clandestinely working on a book.
I am slowly,
Okay.
but I am.
Very cool.
And I believe you're going to be on Behind the Paranormal again.
Yes, I
next
am.
week.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ooh, that's
I don't normally like to, plug other shows, but Paul and Ben are good friends. So
That's
May
right.
8th, I think.
May 8th.
Yeah,
Okay.
it went from May 1st to May 8th.
Are you going to drive down there, or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I like to be in person.
Yeah,
You know?
very nice.
So,
They're fun.
yeah, definitely. So,
And Ben should be married by then.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
All right.
Congratulations, Ben.
Well, yeah, congratulations, Ben. Okay, Shane. Well, we thank you very much for driving up here on this miserable night and spending a little bit of time with us.
It's always a pleasure.
thanks for having me
Thank you.
anytime at all.
Okay. Well, that then is Spirit Radio, the Paranormal Experience, once again for one more week. And Craig Mosier with the Graveyard Shift is coming right up.
And thank you, everyone, for listening, and you have a good evening.